from the Chameleon.
Chameleon! No, not him. This guy, Chameleon. He is Spider-Man's first ever villain. Many people don't actually know this, but the first supervillain Spider-Man ever faced was the Chameleon in issue 1 of Amazing Spider-Man. I use the term supervillain very loosely because Chameleon doesn't always have powers. Chameleon is a shapeshifter, sorta. Sometimes he has powers and can shapeshift at will, other times he's just wearing a mask or multiple masks, and then other times he has like technology that'll project other people's appearances on top of him so he can shapeshift like that. Chameleon is Spider-Man's first ever villain, but he's hardly ever used. Seriously. You could say he's used sparingly at best. Let's look at every single Spider-Man film ever made, and let's count how many times they used the Chameleon, okay? Spider-Man 1, he's not there. Spider-Man 2, he's not there. Spider-Man 3, he's not there. The Amazing Spider-Man, he's not there. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he's not there. Homecoming, he's not there. Far From Home, this doesn't count because it's not actually the Chameleon, it's just freaking Dimitri. So he's not there. And then in No Way Home, he's not there. Well, let's go through some of the Sony movies. Did Sony actually decide to use Chameleon? Venom 1, he's not there. Venom 2, he's not there. Morbius? No, he's not there. In Madam Web? He's not there. How about Venom 3? Not there. But then, finally, he shows up and we actually get to see Chameleon in Kraven. So, we had to go through 13 different Spider-Man films or Spider-Man adjacent films to finally get the Chameleon on the 14th. Spider-Man's first ever villain finally used his powers on the big screen in the 14th Spider-Man film, technically. And the only time he uses the powers is like 3 minutes before the credits start rolling for like a shock factor. It's dastardly. Can't believe they would do this. I must know, why is the Chameleon so underutilized? Looking at the video games, he's in like 2 16-bit video games. He's in the Amazing Spider-Man movie game, and then you like, don't really see him. You hear his voice, you kind of see him in Insomniac Spider-Man 2. You're telling me out of every single Spider-Man game ever made, Spider-Man's first supervillain he ever fought appears in like a whopping 3-ish games? And if we're only talking about modern games, he literally is like only in none of them because he's like in cutscenes and that's it? It's pretty insane to me. In this video, my goal is to try and figure out why Chameleon is so underutilized in Spider-Man media. But before we get into the rest of the video, I need your opinion. What do you think of the Chameleon? Should he be in more stuff? Would you want to see him be a villain in Tom Holland's Spider-Man live-action films? Let me know down below while I talk about the Chameleon. First, let's establish who the Chameleon is as a character. He's the first villain Spider-Man fought, but what about the Chameleon as a character? Who is he? His name is Dmitry Smerdyakov. He doesn't have many powers. Sometimes he can use like low-level shapeshifting, but we all know he can't emulate people's powers even if he can like shapeshift into them. He's a Russian man who has great expertise in spying due to his abilities to shapeshift so easy. However, he usually runs his own thing. He's not really often in teams. He's running his own show. He's got criminals working for him where he's like a solo act trying to steal information and invade, right? That's the Chameleon. When talking about the Chameleon personally, I think of 3 different storylines in the comics. I think of the first ever, naturally, Amazing Spider-Man 1. I think of Spectacular Spider-Man 245, also known as Identity Crisis. And I think of the life model decoy saga that like, took place for like over 25 issues, maybe even a little bit more than that. But let's start with the first appearance. Let's talk about issue number 1 of Spider-Man. This story features Chameleon dressing up as Spider-Man. He webs up these guys, steals some missile plans, and then escapes via helicopter. Spider-Man then shows up and is accused of committing the crimes that had just transpired because Chameleon was dressed as Spider-Man. Spider-Man uses his spider sense in a way we really don't get to see much, and he actually just like hones in and locates the helicopter with the spider sense. Chases the man down, and after a bit of fighting and some trickery, Spider-Man does end up catching the Chameleon. This is the legit first villain Spider-Man ever faces. First villain that he ever faces, okay? Like, this is him. This is the Chameleon. It's issue 1, part 3 of the issue, and this is where he first appears. Yeah, the mugger happens before this in Amazing Fantasy 15, but he's not like a villain. He's just like a robber. Chameleon is like a Russian villain who tried to steal top secret defense plans. That's villain shit. But like I said, he's not really too super, right? Like even when you watch him pretend to be Spider-Man, he can't even web people up. He's using like a web gun. When Spider-Man finally gets his hands on Chameleon also, the fight ends nigh instantly. Chameleon is just not a match for Spider-Man and all of his powers. Which brings us to our next story with Chameleon, Identity Crisis. I bring up this story because it's just so goddamn iconic. Specifically, Spectacular Spider-Man number 245. I believe the storyline spans 4 or 5 issues or so, but this is like the climax of it all. This is the peak of it. Chameleon has trapped Spider-Man in an electric cage with Dr. Kafka and John Jameson. While they're in there, Chameleon is pretending to be Spider-Man, and he's after Mary Jane. When he arrives at Mary Jane's place, MJ tells Peter to wash up because Aunt Anna's gonna be home and they're gonna have dinner soon. Spider-Man goes to wash up, and Mary Jane is just waiting out there. When Spider-Man steps outside of the bathroom, Mary Jane's like, Aunt Anna's gone for the weekend and Peter knows this. I know who you are, Chameleon. And then the Chameleon's like, no, it's not me. And then Mary Jane's like, no, it is you. And the Chameleon's like, it's not me. And then Mary Jane's like, I know it's you. And then he rips off his suit. He's like, it's me and I'm going to get what I came here for. But that's not what's going to happen, Chameleon. You're actually going up against probably the most powerful woman in all of comics, period, ever. She brings out this baseball bat. Mary Jane brings out a baseball bat and beats the ever-living fuck out of the Chameleon. Bodies him. Just body that man. I think that really goes hand in hand with what I was talking about earlier, right? You've seen Chameleon in the Amazing Spider-Man issue #1, and like I said, when he fights Spider-Man, when Spider-Man finally gets his hands on him, the trickery is no longer at play. It's a fisticuffs. Chameleon gets dispatched with easily. He's really not that powerful. You look at Spectacular Spider-Man 245, he's not even able to compare with Mary Jane. Mary Jane doesn't have powers. I mean, I just said she's the most powerful person, but that doesn't mean she has superpowers. She's just powerful in aura. She's powerful in person. She used all that power and beat the living brakes out of this man with no actual superpowers. Chameleon is just not that strong, you know? He's got to get personal with it if we're going to make it work. The Chameleon's going to actually have some ways of inflicting pain on the person he's after. He's got to get personal. He's not the strongest. He's not really going to be able to do it with his fist. He's got to do it with his brain. Which brings us to the last story I like to talk about when it comes to Chameleon, the life model decoy storyline. Chameleon made life model decoys of Peter Parker's parents in order to gain information for who Spider-Man is. He pretty much wants to confirm that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. This all happens obviously before Spectacular Spider-Man 245 because at this point he doesn't know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. This is also like a long saga. It's like an underlining story for Spider-Man comics for like 20 plus issues, like I said earlier in the video. Even Maximum Carnage has the storyline underneath it. Peter's robot dad is talking to him about what he needs to do with his anger and everything, and it's actually very good in my opinion. I think it's a really interesting storyline that spans across like like I said, underlying of a lot of issues because it really just it adds extra storylines to the comic. It's not like you're just reading the comic, you get the storyline and it's done. Like I mean, like I said, these life model decoys were around for quite a bit, and Peter thought they were real, and the fans even started to think they're real too. And then we get to the twist. It turns out the Chameleon had made these robots of Peter Parker's parents because he wanted to figure out Spider-Man's true identity. When Peter Parker's parents go to tell Chameleon after they figure out who Spider-Man really is, Peter's mom's programming is just too similar to his actual mother, and her love for Peter wins out. She can't possibly put her son in harm's way, and she refuses to tell the Chameleon who he is. Spider-Man then breaks in, and a huge battle ensues. Spider-Man's fighting like the Chameleon and Vulture, and that's when Peter's dad turns into like a cyborg monster. Unlike Peter's mom, the coding for Peter's dad is clearly very different from his real dad. Spider-Man then has to beat up his dad, who's like this robot cybernetic monster, and his dad almost ends up killing him. That's when his mom actually ends up killing his dad with an electric overcharge. While Peter is like a little dismayed, he's not really sure what's going on because he just almost freaking died, the Vulture actually steals the remaining life voice from Peter's robot mom and flees the scene as well. So Peter's just left there with both of his dead parents. And the last thing Peter's mom says to him is that she loved him. It's not really him, but the coding is so like not perfect, it feels like it's her. This story is pretty wild, I'm not gonna lie. It's crazy. It's the kind of story that you don't even really see in a comic book because of how wild it is. But this story just gives you such great character moments from a lot of the characters in the story, especially Peter's mom, that I just fucking love it. It's beautiful, honestly. Even if this isn't really Peter's mom, I love this story. And to me, that's Chameleon's 3 best stories in my opinion, right? One thing is very apparent when you look at these stories, Chameleon is not very formidable, right? This guy's a bitch. He's a fraud. He's weak as hell. He can't contest Spider-Man in any way in a straight-up fight. In my opinion, this is why he's never really featured in other media outside of the comics. Imagine if Insomniac Spider-Man just fought like the regular Chameleon. Like, maybe he'll show up in a later game and get some enhancements or something, or it'll be like a cool storyline where we're trying to figure out who he is amongst like the shape-shifting. But imagine just Spider-Man with all of his gadgets and tech and strength and his immortality fought the Chameleon. Dude, it'd be up for the Chameleon. Any day that ended in Y, the Chameleon's face would be broken open. It would be over. It'd be cooked. This man would be done dirty like an everyday thug on the street in one of these games where you just absolutely body them. They wouldn't even consider this guy a boss fight or a mini boss fight. But this man Chameleon can work in stories. He just needs to make it personal for it to work. Going after MJ, creating fake robots of Peter Parker, pretending to be Spider-Man himself to steal missile plans. Stuff like this is just so twisted it works for the character. It works for his stories. The best chameleons all imitate Spider-Man. It's like a core thing in his character. He appears in some of the 80s cartoons, imitating Spider-Man. He appears in the 90s cartoon, imitating Peter Parker. He also appears in Spectacular Spider-Man, imitating Spider-Man. I think both the 90s and the Spectacular storyline are amazing. I can't talk about these shows enough. I probably talk about them pretty much every chance I get in any adaptation video I make, but it's because they just do such a good job with almost every single character. The 90s show arc with him involves Nick Fury, and it's just so freaking good. I loved it. I like how he really pretends to be Peter Parker in this because it just goes like a step further. Like he's not even pretending to be Spider-Man anymore. He's really trying to be the man. And then in Spectacular Spider-Man, the two of them fighting on the yacht or going back and forth on the yacht when Spider-Man's in the black suit, peak. You should totally check out both of these episodes, man. And really check out any episode that he's ever been in. He's also been in the 2017 show as well, and he's pretty good there. It's pretty shocking. This character, he's done pretty well. We got to talk about the Chameleon in the Kraven movie, though. Speaking of things that are done well. Hopefully this will help us try and find an answer to the question we proposed in the beginning of this video, right? Why isn't he used much? He's in Kraven. In this god-awful abomination of a movie, we get to see Chameleon. We get to see Chameleon in this universe, and we honestly get to see more characterization for him than we really get to see in any other medium that isn't the comics. This version of Chameleon is like a frail and fragile man. He's a singer and he wants to be strong enough to stand up for himself. Honestly, this character's pretty ass. Just a real, wimpy dude until the very end you find out that he took over his father's crime lord business, and then we also get to see him use chameleon powers for the first time in live action, and that's it. I was gonna do a deep dive into this character. It's not even worth it. This movie's so trash. It doesn't even do any consistencies with any of the characters. The characters all suck. It was just cool we got to see his powers. That's really it. That's all I'm gonna say about the Chameleon in the Kraven movie. That's it. Ass. Alright, so we don't see a lot of Chameleon, right? Alright, why don't we see Chameleon more? Why is he so unknown to casual fans? To me, that's because he isn't really a super villain, right? Like I said in the beginning of this video, he can shapeshift, but he can't even mimic anyone's powers. At the end of the day, he doesn't have any abilities. That's the best he can do. Imagine watching a whole movie of Spider-Man just trying to catch this guy who can change his appearance. If written well, it could be cool, but fans just wouldn't go for it. Look at every single Spider-Man live-action villain we've gotten in an actual Spider-Man film, and you tell me which one of these would you switch out for the Chameleon? Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, Venom, Lizard, Electro, Vulture, Mysterio. Out of these 8 characters, who would you swap out for Chameleon? Me? I wouldn't choose a single one. I wouldn't swap out any of them. These are all better characters than the Chameleon. They're way more exciting and interesting. If Spider-Man wasn't so bombastic and high-flying, I could see maybe using the Chameleon more. Chameleon would be a great villain for the Daredevil show. But when people are going to see Spider-Man, they're going to see a character who's soaring and flying through the sky. We want to see him fight somebody just as crazy and wild. They don't want the villain to be super tamed and to be like a grounded character, even if he can make for fire storytelling. Overall, I really like the Chameleon as a villain. I get why he isn't used much, though. He really can work, though. You just need someone to put in the effort. Speaking of putting in the effort to make Chameleon work in a story, I got asked to be Spider-Man in an actual YouTube video from a pretty big YouTuber. The GOAT, Coulter35, made a Spider-Man video that is up currently. Spider-Man versus the Chameleon. You guys gotta check it out and see how I did as Spider-Man. Comment on this man's video over here that you came for Spider-Dunk. Let him know I sent the dunkers out. That's about it for me in this video. If you can support, please do so and check out my Patreon. If you want to talk to me more, I'll leave a Discord link in the description down below. Outside of that, I think that's it for me. Dunk out. Peace!